The neutral space station, Harmony's Rest, floated in the darkness between star systems. Its metal walls had seen many diplomatic meetings over the years. Today, those walls would witness something different. Something that would change how the galaxy thought about war. Captain Sarah Chen walked through the station's corridors. Her boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. She wore the dark blue uniform of the Terran Defense Corps. Small scars marked her face from old battles. Her left eye was cybernetic, glowing softly in the dim light. She had seen war before. She would see it again. The meeting room was large and cold. A round table sat in the center. Holographic projectors hung from the ceiling. Representatives from 12 different species sat around the table. They all looked nervous. They had good reason to be. General Vexithera entered the room like a storm. She was 8 feet tall and covered in dark green scales. Scars crossed her face and arms. Each scar told a story of victory over her enemies. Her yellow eyes swept the room until they found Captain Chen. Those eyes held no warmth. "So," Vexithera said, her voice like grinding stone. "The humans finally come to talk." Her translator box hung around her thick neck. It turned her alien words into something others could understand. But it could not translate the hatred in her voice. Captain Chen sat down across from the alien general. She did not look impressed. She had faced worse things than angry lizards. "General Vexithera," Chen said calmly, "I'm here because my government believes in giving fair warning." The other aliens around the table shifted uncomfortably. The Corvani Empire had been growing stronger for years. They conquered worlds and enslaved entire species. Most people were too afraid to stand against them. Vexithara laughed. The sound was like rocks falling down a mountain. "Fair warning? You think you can warn me? Do you know who I am, little human?" "I know exactly who you are," Chen replied. Her voice stayed level and calm. "You're the general who conquered the Altair system. You enslaved the Zelani people. You destroyed the trade routes in the Outer Rim." "Good," Vexithera said. She leaned forward, placing her clawed hands on the table. "Then you know what happens to those who oppose the Corvani Empire." The general stood up and activated the holographic projectors. Images filled the air above the table. Massive ships appeared, their hulls black as space. Armies of Corvani soldiers marched in perfect formation. Their weapons gleamed under alien suns. "Behold," Vexithara said, spreading her arms wide, "the might of the Empire. Over 1 million soldiers under my command. The finest warriors in the galaxy. Ships that can crack planets. Weapons that can melt cities." The other aliens around the table stared at the images in fear. They had heard stories about the Corvani military. Now they could see it with their own eyes. It was overwhelming. "Each of my soldiers is worth 10 of any other species," Vexithera continued. "They are bred for war, trained from birth to kill. They know no fear and show no mercy." The holographic display changed. Now it showed battles from the Empire's recent conquests. Corvani forces crushing their enemies, cities burning, populations fleeing in terror. The Zelani had strong defenses, Vexithara said. It did not matter. The Altair colonies had good ships. They fell in 3 days. The trade guilds thought their mercenaries could protect them. They were wrong. She turned to face Captain Chen directly. Her yellow eyes gleamed with confidence. "Your pathetic human colonies are next, Captain. You would be wise to surrender now. Kneel before the Empire and your people might live as slaves. Resist and they will all die." The room fell silent. The air felt heavy with tension. Some of the alien diplomats looked like they wanted to run. Others stared at their hands, afraid to meet anyone's eyes. Captain Chen sat quietly through the entire display. She did not flinch when Vexithera showed the burning cities. She did not gasp at the massive armies. She just watched and listened. "Are you finished?" Chen asked finally. Vexithera blinked in surprise. She had expected fear. She had expected begging. She had not expected this calm question. "Did you not hear me, human? I command over 1 million soldiers. The finest warriors in the galaxy. Your species has never faced such might." Chen leaned back in her chair. A small smile appeared on her face. It was not a warm smile. It was the kind of smile that made smart people take a step back. "1 million soldiers?" Chen said softly. The room went completely quiet. Even the station's air recyclers seemed to stop humming. Chen's smile grew wider. Her cybernetic eye focused on Vexithera with mechanical precision. "That's not an army, General," she said. Her voice was so calm it was frightening. "That's a target-rich environment. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The other aliens looked between Chen and Vexithera like they were watching a predator face down prey. They just were not sure which was which. Vexithera's claws scraped against the table. "What did you say?" "You heard me," Chen replied. She stood up slowly, never taking her eyes off the alien general. "You just told me you've gathered 1 million of your best soldiers in one place. Do you have any idea how easy that makes my job? You dare mock the Empire?" Vexithera roared. Spittle flew from her mouth. Her hand moved toward the weapon on her belt. Chen did not move. She did not even blink. "I'm not mocking anything," she said. "I'm just doing math." She walked around the table until she was standing next to Vexithera. The alien general was much taller, but somehow Chen seemed to fill more space. "You see, General, you think like a conqueror. You want to crush your enemies with overwhelming force. Show them your strength until they give up in despair." Chen turned to look at the holographic display of Corvani ships and soldiers. "But I think like a soldier, and soldiers know something that conquerors often forget." She turned back to face Vexithera. Her expression was no longer calm. Now it was cold as deep space. "The bigger the target, the easier it is to hit." Vexithera snarled and reached for her weapon, but 2 of her own guards stepped forward. They had been ordered to keep the peace during negotiations. Even they looked nervous now. "This meeting is over," Chen said. She gathered her data pad and headed for the door. "You have 72 hours to withdraw your forces from human space. After that, we consider ourselves at war. You cannot win," Vexithera shouted after her. "My 1,000,000 soldiers will crush you." Chen stopped at the door. She turned back one more time. "General," she said, "you just made the biggest mistake of your military career." "And what is that?" Chen's smile returned. This time it was even colder than before. "You told me exactly where all your soldiers are going to be." The door closed behind her with a soft hiss. Captain Sarah Chen walked back through the corridors of Harmony's Rest. Behind her, she left a room full of very worried aliens and one extremely angry Corvani general. In 72 hours, General Vexithera would learn why humans had never lost a war once they decided to fight it. She would learn why other species whispered about human tactics in the dark corners of the galaxy. She would learn that there was a difference between being strong and being dangerous. Most importantly, she would learn why no human had ever been impressed by large numbers. After all, the more targets you have, the more practice you get. Captain Chen's ship, the Retribution, cut through space like a knife through silk. The bridge was dark except for the glow of computer screens. Chen sat in her command chair, reviewing reports from across human space. Each report told the same story. The Corvani Empire was preparing for war, but Chen was not worried about Corvani preparations. She was thinking about human ones. The view screen showed a recording from Earth's military academy. Chen had graduated from that academy 20 years ago. She remembered every lesson they taught there. Today she was reviewing the most important one. "War," said the instructor on the screen, "is not about being strong. It is about making your enemy weak." The instructor was General Morrison, an old man with white hair and tired eyes. He had fought in the Centauri Rebellion and the Alpha Station Massacre. He knew what he was talking about. "Other species think war is about honor," Morrison continued. "They think it is about proving who is stronger. They are wrong. War is a problem that needs to be solved, and humans are very good at solving problems." Chen paused the recording. She remembered sitting in that classroom as a young cadet. Back then, she thought she understood what Morrison meant. Now, after years of fighting, she really understood. She opened another file. This one showed battle footage from the Centauri Rebellion. Human forces had been outnumbered 10-1. The rebels had better ships and more soldiers. They should have won easily. Instead, they lost everything in 6 days. The footage showed why. Human commanders did not attack the rebel fleets directly. Instead, they attacked supply lines. They destroyed fuel depots and ammunition factories. They hacked communication networks and spread false information. By the 3rd day, rebel ships were running out of fuel. By the 5th day, they were running out of food. On the 6th day, they surrendered. Force multiplication, Chen said to herself. It was the first thing they taught at the academy. You do not need more soldiers if you can make each soldier worth 10 enemies. She opened another file. This one showed human weapon development over the past century. Other species built bigger guns and stronger armor. Humans built smarter weapons and better information systems. A Corvani soldier carried a plasma rifle that could melt through steel. A human soldier carried a rifle that could think for itself. It could track multiple targets, calculate wind speed, and adjust for gravity. It could fire around corners and through walls. Most importantly, it could share information with every other weapon on the battlefield. When a human soldier saw an enemy, every human soldier saw that enemy. Chen closed the weapons file and opened Tactical Doctrine. This was what really made humans dangerous. Other species fought like their ancestors did thousands of years ago. They lined up their armies and charged at each other until one side broke. Humans fought like they were solving an equation. The first rule of human warfare was simple: never fight fair. If the enemy had more soldiers, you attacked their supplies. If they had better weapons, you attacked their factories. If they had stronger defenses, you went around them. The second rule was even simpler: make the enemy come to you. Let them choose the time and place of battle. Then make sure that time and place became a trap. Chen had used these rules many times. During the Vega campaign, she had turned an entire asteroid field into a weapons platform. When pirate fleets tried to attack human colonies, they found themselves surrounded by rocks that could shoot back. During the Proxima incident, she had convinced enemy forces that her single ship was actually a fleet of 20 vessels. The pirates spent 3 days running from ghosts while human reinforcements moved into position. Her favorite victory had been against the Titan Syndicate. They had demanded tribute from human trading posts. They brought a fleet of 60 ships to show they were serious. Chen brought 1 ship and a computer virus. The virus made all 60 ships think their own allies were enemies. The Syndicate fleet destroyed itself while Chen watched from a safe distance. These victories had made her famous across human space. They had also made her feared by human enemies. Pirates and raiders learned to avoid systems where Captain Chen might be operating. It was easier to find other targets than to risk meeting her. But Chen knew something that most people did not understand. She was not special. She was just a normal human officer who had been taught to think like a human. Every human military academy taught the same lessons. Every human officer learned the same tactics. Every human soldier understood the same basic truth. War was not about fighting. War was about winning. The academy recordings showed this clearly. Instructors did not teach cadets to be brave or honorable. They taught them to be smart and ruthless. They taught them to think 10 steps ahead of their enemies. They taught them that the best battle was the one you never had to fight because the enemy was already defeated. Humans do not fight wars, General Morrison said in another recording. We solve them like engineering problems. We find the critical failure points and break them. We turn the enemy's strengths into weaknesses. We make them defeat themselves. Chen smiled as she watched the old general explain human doctrine. Morrison had been dead for 5 years now, but his lessons lived on in every human officer. She opened her personal files and found recordings from her own battles. Each one showed the same pattern. Enemies would approach with overwhelming force, confident in their strength. Then human tactics would turn that strength against them. Large armies became large targets. Fast ships became fuel-hungry liabilities. Strong defenses became expensive prisons. Time after time, human forces had taken enemy advantages and made them into disadvantages. Chen closed the files and called up a star map. It showed the positions of both human and Corvani forces across this sector of space. The Corvani had more ships and more soldiers. Their technology was almost as good as human technology. By traditional measures, they should win any war between the two species. But Chen was not thinking in traditional measures. She was thinking like a human. The Corvani had gathered their 1,000,000 soldiers in one place. They thought this showed strength. Chen saw it as a critical weakness. 1,000,000 soldiers needed food, fuel, ammunition, and medical supplies. They needed communication networks and command structures. They needed transportation and logistics support. All of these things could be disrupted. All of these things could be destroyed. All of these things could be turned against the Corvani themselves. Chen began typing orders into her command console. She was not ordering attacks on Corvani forces. She was ordering attacks on Corvani capabilities. supply lines, communication relays, fuel depots, command centers, the infrastructure that kept armies running. She also sent orders to human civilian ships throughout the sector. To outside observers, it would look like humans were evacuating their colonies. In reality, they were positioning assets for the coming battle. Every civilian transport carried military hardware. Every merchant vessel had weapons and sensors hidden in its cargo holds. Every refugee ship was actually a mobile command center or weapons platform. When the Corvani arrived to conquer empty human colonies, they would find themselves surrounded by enemies they could not see and could not fight. Chen finished her orders and leaned back in her command chair. In 3 days, General Vexithara would learn why humans had never lost a war. She would learn that strength meant nothing without intelligence. She would learn that numbers meant nothing without strategy. Most importantly, she would learn that humans did not fight to prove anything. They fought to win, and they always won because they understood something that other species had forgotten. War was not about having the biggest army. War was about making sure the other side could not use theirs. Chen smiled and gave the order to jump to hyperspace. It was time to teach the galaxy another lesson about human warfare. It was time to show them why smart always beats strong. It was time to turn 1 million Corvani soldiers into 1 million targets. 3 weeks had passed since the meeting at Harmony's Rest. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen when the Corvani Empire met human stubbornness. Most species expected the humans to surrender. After all, 1 million Corvani soldiers was an army that could conquer entire star systems. General Vexithara stood on the bridge of her flagship, the World Breaker. Around her ship, 1,000 other vessels moved in perfect formation. Below decks, 1 million soldiers prepared for battle. This was the largest military force the Corvani Empire had ever assembled. It should have been enough to conquer anything. General, her communications officer reported, "We are receiving surrender requests from human colonies across the sector." Vexithara's scaled lips pulled back in what might have been a smile. "As expected, the humans have seen our strength and lost their courage. Should we accept their surrender?" "No," Vexithara said firmly. "They had their chance to surrender with honor. Now they will surrender with fear. We take the Kepler 442 system first. Let them watch their most valuable colonies burn. Then they will beg us to accept their submission." The communications officer looked uncomfortable. "General, some of our intelligence reports suggest the human evacuations might be what?" Vexithara snapped. "Strategic redeployment. Our analysts think the humans might be preparing defenses." Vexithara laughed, the sound echoing across the bridge. "Let them prepare whatever defenses they want. 1 million soldiers can break any defense. We have faced fortified worlds before. They all fell." What General Vexithara did not know was that human evacuations were nothing like what other species did when they retreated. When most aliens evacuated a system, they packed up everything valuable and ran away. When humans evacuated a system, they turned it into a weapon. Captain Chen floated in zero gravity aboard her ship, the Retribution. Around her, displays showed the progress of Operation Mousetrap. That was what the human high command had named their preparation for the Corvani invasion. For 3 weeks, human engineers had worked around the clock in the Kepler 442 system. To outside observers, it looked like they were dismantling installations and fleeing. In reality, they were building the largest military trap in human history. "Report," Chen ordered. Commander Williams, her tactical officer, activated a holographic display of the Kepler 442 system. "All primary installations are complete, Captain. We have sensor networks in place throughout the asteroid belt. Every major rock has been equipped with either weapons or detection equipment." The display showed thousands of asteroids, each one now carrying hidden surprises. Some had railgun platforms built into their cores. Others carried missile launchers disguised as mining equipment. Still others held sensor arrays that could track ships millions of kilometers away. "What about the outer system defenses?" Chen asked. "Positioned and ready," Williams replied. "We have weapons platforms disguised as debris at all major hyperspace exit points. Any ship jumping into the system will be immediately targeted." Chen nodded. Human strategy did not rely on obvious defenses like space stations or battleships. Those could be seen and destroyed. Instead, humans preferred invisible defenses that looked like empty space until it was too late. "Status of our mobile forces? All ships are in position," Williams said. "The civilian evacuation fleet is holding at the edge of the system." Every transport is actually a disguised warship. The merchant vessels carry our heaviest weapons. The refugee ships are loaded with Marines and assault craft. Chen smiled. This was human warfare at its finest. The enemy would see a defeated population fleeing from superior force. What they would actually find was a carefully prepared killing field, with the defenders positioned for maximum effectiveness. What about intelligence gathering? We have complete information on Corvani fleet composition and approach vectors, Williams reported. Our infiltration programs have been monitoring their communications for weeks. We know exactly when they will arrive and how they plan to attack. This was another human advantage that other species often overlooked. While aliens focused on building bigger weapons, humans focused on building better information systems. Before the first shot was fired, human commanders would know everything about enemy plans, capabilities, and weaknesses. Time until Corvani arrival? 6 hours, Captain. Chen pushed off from the display and floated toward her command chair. 6 hours to finish the final preparations. 6 hours before the galaxy learned what happened when someone threatened human space. Across the system, human forces made their last preparations. Weapons platforms powered up their targeting systems. Sensor networks began scanning hyperspace for incoming ships. Marines checked their equipment one final time. But the most important preparations were happening in the computer networks that connected everything together. Human warfare relied on information more than firepower. Every sensor reading was shared instantly across the entire defense network. Every weapon system could be controlled from any command post. Every soldier could see what every other soldier was seeing. When the Corvani arrived, they would not be fighting 200 humans on a single ship. They would be fighting a single organism with 200 brains and thousands of weapons. Chen strapped herself into her command chair and activated her personal displays. As the commanding officer, she could see everything that was happening throughout the system. Weapon status, sensor readings, troop positions, supply levels. It was like having the eyes and ears of a god. Captain, her communications officer, reported, "We are receiving a message from Admiral Harrison at Fleet Command." Put it through. Admiral Harrison's face appeared on Chen's screen. He was an older man with gray hair and serious eyes. He had been fighting humanity's wars for 30 years. "Captain Chen," he said, "you are authorized to engage the Corvani fleet with full force. Show them what happens when someone threatens human colonies." "Understood, Admiral. We will not disappoint you." "I know you won't," Harrison said. "The entire fleet is watching, Captain." "Make us proud." The transmission ended. Chen looked around her bridge at her crew. There were only 20 people here, but they represented the best of human military training. Each one was a specialist who had trained for years to perfect their skills. "All stations. Report readiness," Chen ordered. "Weapons. Systems online and ready," reported her weapons officer. "Sensors show all green across the network," said her sensor specialist. "Communications networks are functioning perfectly," added her signals officer. "Engineering reports all systems optimal," called her chief engineer. Chen nodded. Everything was ready. Now they just had to wait for the Corvani to spring the trap. "Captain," Williams said, "hyperspace sensors are detecting incoming ships. Multiple contacts. Very large formation." "Here we go," Chen said quietly. "All units, this is Retribution Command. Enemy forces are approaching. Maintain radio silence until my signal. Remember, we want them deep inside the system before we reveal ourselves." Across the Kepler 442 system, human forces went quiet. Weapons platforms powered down their active sensors. Ships turned off their engines and drifted like space debris. Communication networks switched to passive monitoring only. To anyone scanning the system, it would look completely empty. Just another star system that humans had abandoned in the face of superior force. The Corvani fleet dropped out of hyperspace in a cloud of exotic particles and twisted space-time. 1,000 ships suddenly appeared where empty space had been moments before. At their head flew the massive bulk of the World Breaker, General Vexthara's flagship. Chen watched the enemy fleet on her displays. They were moving in traditional formation, with the largest ships in the center and smaller vessels providing escort. It was an impressive sight. It was also exactly what human tactical computers had predicted. "Enemy fleet is proceeding toward the inner system," Williams reported. "They are following standard Corvani doctrine." "Perfect," Chen said. "Let them come deeper. We want them completely surrounded before we spring the trap." On her screen, Chen could see General Vexithara's ship leading the invasion force toward what the Corvani thought were defenseless human colonies. The alien general probably felt very confident right now. After all, she commanded 1 million soldiers and faced empty space. In 30 minutes, she would learn that empty space could be the most dangerous thing in the galaxy when humans had prepared it properly. Chen settled back in her command chair and waited. Soon the real battle would begin. Soon the galaxy would see why humans never worried about being outnumbered. After all, it did not matter how many soldiers you had if you could not use them effectively, and General Vexithara was about to discover that her 1 million soldiers were positioned exactly where Captain Chen wanted them to be. General Vexithara stood on the bridge of the World Breaker and watched empty space scroll past on her view screen. The Kepler 442 system spread out before her fleet, like a meal waiting to be consumed. Planets rich with valuable minerals, asteroid belts full of rare metals, space stations that could be converted into military bases, all of it abandoned by cowardly humans who had fled rather than face Corvani might. General, her sensor officer reported, we are detecting no active defenses. No ships, no weapon platforms, no military installations. The system appears to be completely evacuated. As expected, Vexithara said with satisfaction. The humans saw our strength and ran like frightened children. Begin landing operations on the primary mining world. I want our flag planted there within the hour. Behind her, 1 million Corvani soldiers prepared for victory. Transport ships moved toward the planets. Supply vessels took positions to support the invasion. Command ships coordinated the massive operation. It was exactly what Captain Chen had been waiting for. All units, Chen said into her communication system. This is Retribution Command. The mouse is in the trap. Repeat, the mouse is in the trap. Execute Operation Mousetrap. I say again, execute Operation Mousetrap. Across the Kepler 442 system, space came alive. The first sign that something was wrong came from the asteroid belt. Rocks that had been drifting harmlessly suddenly lit up with targeting sensors. Hidden weapons platforms emerged from concealment. What had looked like empty space revealed itself to be a carefully prepared killing field. General, the Corvani sensor officer shouted, I am reading multiple weapon signatures throughout the asteroid belt. Hundreds of them. Vexithara spun around. That is impossible. Our scouts reported the system was empty. The signatures are coming online now, the officer said, his voice rising in panic. They were hidden. Powered down, we could not detect them until they activated. On the view screen, dots of light began appearing throughout the system. Each dot represented a weapon platform that had been disguised as space debris. There were hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. How? Vexithara demanded. How did they hide so many weapons? She would never get an answer to that question. At that moment, the first human weapons opened fire. Railgun platforms throughout the asteroid belt began launching projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. These were not explosive warheads or energy beams. They were simple chunks of metal accelerated to incredible velocities. At those speeds, a small piece of iron could punch through the hull of a battleship like paper. The first Corvani ships to die were the supply vessels. Human targeting computers had identified them as priority targets. Without supplies, even the strongest army would eventually collapse. Vexithara watched in horror as her supply ships began exploding. One moment they were moving steadily toward their assigned positions. The next moment they were expanding clouds of debris and escaping atmosphere. Return fire, she ordered. All ships engage the asteroid belt. Corvani ships began shooting at the rocks around them. Plasma beams and missile volleys lit up space as they tried to destroy the hidden weapon platforms. But the humans had prepared for this too. Most of the weapons were buried deep inside solid asteroids. Corvani fire might destroy the surface rock, but the weapons themselves were protected by kilometers of stone and metal. Meanwhile, human weapons kept firing. More supply ships died. Then transport vessels carrying troops began exploding. The carefully organized Corvani formation started to break apart as ships tried to find cover that did not exist. General, the communications officer reported, we are receiving reports from throughout the fleet. Ships are being destroyed faster than we can count them. How many ships have we lost? Vexithara demanded. Unknown. Communications are being disrupted. Some ships are reporting successful hits on human positions, but the weapons keep firing. Vexithara was beginning to understand. The humans had not built a few hidden weapons. They had turned the entire asteroid belt into a fortress. Every rock was a potential threat. Every piece of space debris might hide a weapon system, but the worst was yet to come. "General," the sensor officer said, his voice now completely panicked. "I am reading new contacts, multiple ships approaching from the outer system." "Reinforcements?" Vexthara asked hopefully. "No, General. They are coming from human positions. The evacuation fleet is returning." On the view screen, new dots of light appeared at the edge of the system. Ships that had been identified as fleeing civilian transports were now moving toward the Corvani fleet, but something was wrong with them. "General," the weapons officer reported, "those civilian ships are showing military-grade weapon signatures. They are not transports. They are warships." Vexthara felt cold dread settle in her stomach. The humans had not fled. They had repositioned. What looked like a defeated population escaping to safety was actually a military force moving into attack positions. The civilian ships opened fire. These were not hidden weapons shooting from concealment. These were full military vessels engaging in direct combat. Human warships that had been disguised as helpless transports revealed their true nature. Missiles streaked across space. Energy beams carved through Corvani hulls. The evacuation fleet had become an attack force, and it was hitting the Corvani fleet from behind while the asteroid weapons hit them from the front. "We are surrounded," Vexthara realized. "They have surrounded us." Her tactical officer was frantically updating the battle display. Red dots representing human weapons covered the screen. They were everywhere, above, below, on all sides. The Corvani fleet was trapped in the middle of a sphere of human firepower. "General," the communications officer reported, "Admiral Korthak is requesting immediate evacuation. His ship is heavily damaged and losing atmosphere." "Denied," Vexthara said. "We do not retreat. Signal all ships to advance. Break through their lines." But there were no lines to break through. Human tactics did not rely on traditional formations. Instead of presenting a target that could be attacked, they had created a network of overlapping fields of fire that covered every possible escape route. Corvani ships tried to retreat, only to find more human weapons waiting for them. They tried to advance, but the asteroid belt was a maze of hidden gun positions. They tried to spread out, but human targeting computers simply shifted fire to track the new positions. "General," her chief of staff said quietly, "we need to consider withdrawal. We have lost over half our supply ships. Our troops cannot be resupplied. Our communications are being jammed. Our formation is breaking apart." "No," Vexthara roared. "We have 1,000,000 soldiers. The finest warriors in the galaxy. We cannot be defeated by a handful of humans hiding behind rocks." But even as she spoke, more Corvani ships were dying. The humans were not fighting like warriors. They were fighting like exterminators. Each shot was calculated for maximum effect. Each target was chosen to cause the most damage to Corvani capabilities. Command ships were priority targets, leaving Corvani forces without coordination. Medical vessels were destroyed, preventing treatment of the wounded. Engineering ships were eliminated, making repairs impossible. The humans were not just destroying Corvani ships. They were destroying the Corvani ability to fight. "General," the sensor officer reported, "I am reading massive power buildup from the human flagship. They appear to be charging some kind of weapon." Vexthara looked at her display. In the middle of the human formation, one ship was glowing brighter than the others. "The Retribution, Captain Chen's ship. What kind of weapon?" she asked. "Unknown. The energy signature is unlike anything in our databases." What they were seeing was not a single massive weapon. It was the human command ship coordinating the fire of every weapon in the system. Captain Chen was not just commanding her own ship. She was commanding the entire asteroid belt, the entire evacuation fleet, and every hidden platform in the system. The humans had turned the entire Kepler 442 system into a single gigantic weapon, and Chen was pulling the trigger. "All ships," Chen's voice came over the communication channels. "This is Captain Chen of the Terran Defense Corps. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now and your crews will be treated according to galactic law. Continue fighting and you will be destroyed." Vexthara stared at the communication console. The human captain was offering terms. After everything that had happened, she was still willing to accept surrender. For a moment, Vexthara almost accepted. Her fleet was being systematically destroyed. Her million soldiers were trapped on ships that were rapidly becoming coffins. The smart thing to do would be to surrender and save what forces she could. But Corvani generals did not surrender. It was not in their nature. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "Fight to the death. For the glory of the Empire." "General," her tactical officer said quietly, "we have lost contact with over 300 ships. Of the remaining 700, more than half are reporting critical damage." Vexithara closed her eyes. 700 ships out of 1,000, half of those barely functional. Her million soldiers reduced to a few 100,000 survivors scattered across a dying fleet. And the humans were still firing. "Time to human weapon reload?" she asked. "They appear to have unlimited ammunition," the tactical officer replied. "The weapons are built into the asteroids themselves. They are essentially mining the belt for projectiles and manufacturing them on site." Vexithara opened 8. General Vexithara sat in a human prison cell aboard the Retribution. The walls were plain metal painted white. A simple bed, a table, and a chair were the only furniture. It was clean and comfortable. Nothing like the torture chambers she had expected. That somehow made it worse. Through the small window she could see the wreckage of her fleet drifting in space. Twisted metal and debris where proud Corvani warships had once flown, the largest military force in her species' history, reduced to scrap in less than a day. Captain Chen entered the cell carrying 2 cups of coffee. She set one in front of Vexithara and sat down across from her. "Drink," Chen said. "It will help with the shock." Vexithara stared at the cup. "You offer me refreshment after destroying my entire fleet?" "I offer you refreshment because the fighting is over," Chen replied. "You are my prisoner now, not my enemy." "How?" Vexithara asked. The question had been burning in her mind since her ship was captured. "How did you destroy 1,000,000 soldiers with so few ships?" Chen sipped her coffee and considered the question. "You brought soldiers to a math problem, General. Humans do not fight fair. We fight to win." "Explain." Chen activated a small holographic projector on the table. It showed the battle from start to finish with human and Corvani positions marked in different colors. "You thought like a conqueror," Chen said. "You wanted to crush us with overwhelming force. Show us your strength until we gave up in despair." The hologram showed the Corvani fleet moving into the system in perfect formation. 1,000 ships carrying 1,000,000 soldiers approaching what they thought were defenseless human colonies. "But I thought like a soldier," Chen continued. "And soldiers know that war is not about fighting. War is about winning." The display changed to show the hidden human weapons throughout the asteroid belt. Hundreds of platforms that had been invisible until they opened fire. "Your 1,000,000 soldiers were meaningless because they could not reach their targets," Chen explained. "Human doctrine has always emphasized destroying the enemy's ability to fight, rather than fighting the enemy directly." Vexithara watched the replay of her fleet's destruction. Supply ships dying first, cutting off fuel and ammunition. Command vessels targeted next, destroying coordination. Transport ships turned into floating coffins as their passengers suffocated in the void. "But how did you hide so many weapons?" she asked. "We did not hide them," Chen said. "We built them. For 3 weeks while you prepared your invasion, human engineers were turning this entire system into a weapon. Every asteroid, every piece of debris, every apparent evacuation ship. The hologram showed the construction process. Human workers installing weapons inside hollow asteroids. Military ships disguised as civilian transports. Sensor networks hidden throughout the system. The evacuation was fake, Vexithara realized. The evacuation was repositioning, Chen corrected. We moved our military assets to optimal attack positions while making it look like a retreat. When you arrived, you thought you were facing empty space. In reality, you were surrounded by enemies you could not see. Vexithara felt sick. Her entire strategy had been based on false information. The humans had not fled in terror. They had prepared a trap that was 3 weeks in the making. Your species thinks too much like warriors, Chen continued. You focus on individual strength and personal honor. Humans think like engineers. We analyze problems and find the most efficient solutions. The hologram showed casualty reports from the battle. Over 800 Corvani ships destroyed or disabled. Nearly 700,000 Corvani soldiers dead or captured. Human losses. 12 automated weapon platforms and 1 damaged transport. 12 platforms. Vexithara said quietly. You lost 12 platforms and destroyed my entire fleet. We lost some equipment, Chen said. You lost an army. That is the difference between fighting smart and fighting hard. Vexithara stared at the numbers. In her culture, such a lopsided defeat was impossible. Armies were supposed to clash with honor. Warriors were supposed to prove their worth in combat. The stronger side was supposed to win. "How did your people become so effective at war?" she asked. Chen's expression became serious. "We had good teachers. For thousands of years, humans fought each other. We learned that honor means nothing to the dead. We learned that the only victory that matters is the one that lets your people go home safe." The hologram changed to show historical battles from Earth. Humans using terrain to their advantage. Humans turning enemy strengths into weaknesses. Humans winning fights they should have lost through superior tactics and better planning. We also learned that technology is only as good as the people using it. Chen continued. "Your ships were individually superior to ours. Your soldiers were stronger and better armed. But our people were better trained and better coordinated." Vexthera thought about her own military training. Corvani officers learned to command through strength and intimidation. They proved their worth by winning single combat against other warriors. Strategy was considered less important than personal courage. Human officers apparently learned something very different. "What happens now?" Vexthara asked. "Now you go home," Chen said. "We will return your surviving ships and crews to Corvani space. You will tell your empire what happened here." Vexithera was surprised. "You are releasing us?" "We are not conquerors," Chen explained. "We do not want to rule other species. We just want to be left alone to live our lives in peace. But surely you could use this victory to expand human territory." Chen shook her head. "Human territory is wherever humans choose to live. We do not need to conquer others to prove our worth. We have already proven it." The door to the cell opened and a human guard entered. He was young and polite, nothing like the brutal jailers Vexithera had expected. "General," the guard said, "your transport is ready. Captain Chen has arranged for you to be returned to your flagship." Vexithara stood up slowly. Her legs still felt weak from the shock of defeat. "Captain, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "The other species in the galaxy, do they know what happened here?" Chen smiled. "Word travels fast in space, General. By now every government in this sector knows that the Corvani Empire's greatest fleet was destroyed by a single human captain and her crew." Vexithara felt cold dread settle in her stomach. If other species learned that humans could defeat overwhelming odds so easily, everything would change. The balance of power that had kept the galaxy stable for centuries would shift overnight. "What will they do with this information?" she asked. "Smart species will leave humans alone," Chen said. "Stupid species will try to test us. We prefer smart species." As Vexthera was escorted from the cell, she thought about the implications. The Corvani Empire had been one of the strongest military powers in the galaxy. If humans could destroy a Corvani fleet so easily, what could they do to other species? More importantly, what would other species do when they realized that human military doctrine made traditional warfare obsolete? 3 days later, Vexithera stood on the bridge of her damaged flagship as it limped back toward Corvani space. Around her, the survivors of the greatest military disaster in her species' history tried to come to terms with what had happened. Her communications officer handed her a data pad. "General, we are receiving messages from across the galaxy. News of our defeat has reached every major government." Vexithara read the messages with growing alarm. Some species were offering alliance with the Corvani Empire, hoping to gain human military support. Others were demanding that the Empire stay away from their territory, afraid that Corvani aggression might bring human retaliation. Most disturbing were the messages from other military powers. Several empires that had been planning expansion campaigns had suddenly canceled their operations. The mere possibility of facing human tactics had made them reconsider their strategies. "General," her tactical officer reported, "the Titan Syndicate has announced they are withdrawing from all human border territories. The Vegan Trade Union is offering humans exclusive trading rights. The Altair Republic is requesting a non-aggression pact." Vexthara closed her eyes. In one battle, humans had changed the entire political structure of this sector. Not through conquest or intimidation, but through demonstration. They had shown what happened when someone threatened human interests. The lesson would not be forgotten. "General," the communications officer said quietly, "we are receiving a priority message from the Empire. The High Command wants a full report on human military capabilities." Vexthara thought about what she would tell them. How could she explain that humans did not fight like other species? How could she make them understand that traditional military thinking was useless against an enemy that turned your own strengths against you? Tell them, she said finally, that humans are not like other species. They do not fight to prove their strength. They fight to solve problems. And they are very good at solving problems. As her ship continued its long journey home, Vexithara stared out at the stars and wondered what the galaxy would look like now that everyone knew humans could not be conquered by conventional means. In military academies across known space, new courses were being added to the curriculum. Human warfare doctrine became required study for all officers.